Hi, and welcome to AlphaBits. AlphaBits is an outlet for our inquisitive minds. We can't stop experimenting with new technology, and we want to share what we're playing with you. We're your hosts, Brian and David.
Hi, I'm David, the founder of the Raw Code Academy and perpetual learner, always playing with new cool tools that I'm going to share with you as part of this podcast.
And I'm Brian. I'm a developer advocate at Amazon, and I love all the shiny new toys in tech. It's kind of my passion is testing out the new stuff and seeing what's cool.
Okay, so I'm in a project that is a Hugo blog. And what I intend to do is make Hugo available only in this directory. So if I ask which Hugo, see, I don't have one. So I'm going to do is aqua init. And that creates the YAML file. All right, so it's set the registry. So this is a pinned version of the package registry that shows which packages are available and what versions of those packages are available. So I'm going to search for Hugo. And it brings up a fuzzy finder-like search interface. So I'll type Hugo. And I get two choices, basically, Hugo Extended and Hugo. So I'll just pick Hugo. And it outputs this array item for YAML. So let's VI our aqua thing. And paste in the output. So Hugo version 0.117. Save it. The aqua I. Now if I type in Hugo, I've got a Hugo. I move up a directory. Still there, but I could choose a different version in a different directory if I wanted to. Type Hugo, it works, and I'm good to go. You can include that cat. So you would include this in your Git repository, so that any person that was using this would automatically get the same configuration. So that's at the project level. At the global level, there's also another config file that you can use for globally available tools. So if you look at my globally available Aqua YAML, I have the GitHub CLI, Fuzzy Finder, and NeoVim installed. So it's pretty wicked. I mean, you could use this to get a very repeatable environment, but it's very much focused on CLI tools, CLI applications, binaries, as opposed to libraries.
Nice.
So it's pretty slick. Let's say I wanted to search for cargo. So I could just do aqua G, and there is no cargo in here. How about Rust Analyzer? So I could add the Rust Analyzer if I wanted, probably because Rust itself is such a large install.
Is Comtria there?
Let's see. Yes, it is. So Comtria, we can add it. Because I'm at the global level, I have to specify this -A. So it will be included in the global. So now I can try it. If I could spell. That's weird. I swear it said package version 0.85. But Comtria reports 0.84. Strange.
That's probably me. I probably forgot to update a version string somewhere, but I'll look into it.
Possibly. All right, so that's Aqua. It's short and sweet, but pretty powerful if you want to do some version pinning of particular tools at both the global and project level and share that with your team.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm assuming their registry is just a GitHub repository that anyone can go along and contribute stuff
to. It is,
right?
Yes. So you go to aquaproj, let's stop this screen and add a different. All right, so here's their GitHub org. You can see the Aqua thing itself. It's got an installer and the registry. And the registry has all of the package definitions. And when I first looked at Aqua roughly a year ago, they had 30 or 40, but now it's got to be well into the thousands. So they have pretty much anything you need in terms of binary. So you can see the definition, the registry metadata, and this is how it knows how to get things out of GitHub. And then the package metadata. That's Starship version 1.16.0.
Nice. Very cool.
So that's what I got.
All right. So this is a rather contrived application of a build pipeline. It's a backend Go app. It just has like some really simple endpoints, like /ping, /ask, which speaks to, the OpenAI ChatGPT. You paste in a question, it gives you a response. That's it, nice and simple. The reason I set it up like this is because I wanted it to use an API token and a secret to show how that worked with the Dagger build pipeline. So it does need this environment variable to exist, and we'll see how we make that work, or at least how we satisfy that with the Dagger pipeline. I'm always making sure that I have my build instructions as close to my application as possible. So you'll see here that in the backend directory, and I know the sidebar is always really small on VS Code, but we have a build directory with some Go code called build.go. And this is our Dagger pipeline. So all of these publicly exported functions are things that can be consumed or used by a general purpose build tool. And we'll see the general purpose pattern in a moment. But we see here that we have export, which is going to call another step, build container image, and then publish it to my GitHub registry. The build thing itself, we can ignore the runtime caller. This is just me doing some weird directory juggling. But we get this Dagger client where we say that we want a container, and we're going to use Golang latest as the base. And we add our current directory to /source within the container. We set our worker, and then we say web exec, so we execute a command inside of this container. These 5 instructions are pretty much just a Docker file, right? I'm building a container image, or potentially I could be building a container image. Where all I'm doing is running go build, outputting a binary called backend, and telling it that the source is main.go. So now I've taken the instructions to build my application and made them available as a function within a Dagger pipeline. We then actually build the container. So this is like a multi-stage container file or Docker file. Only this time when we ship it to prod, I wouldn't normally use Ubuntu 22, but whatever, let's ignore that for now. We do an apt update, we install the CA certificates, we grab a file from an alternative build step. So here we're actually using the output of this build as a variable and grabbing a file from anywhere inside of the container, which is just our source backend binary. We set an entry point, and then that's us got a container image. And that's it. You don't know there's GraphQL. You don't know that it's a container-based build plane. You don't really know that it's Dagger, other than that we have an import for some Dagger stuff. So I just find this a really nice API to define how to build any application. Now I could run this with Go Run, but because it's a mono repository, at least this is a fake contrived mono repository in this case, I wanted to have like a centralized build instruction. So I've got the choice, right? As a developer, I can build a small isolated part, which is just the backend, or I could just say go run everything and build the things that have changed. And because this uses BuildKit under the hood, and we're only mounting in specific things to each step, it can really take advantage of the way that BuildKit and container caching works. So I could point it to an entire mono repository with thousands of projects, but if one file is changed, it'll build the one thing the thing is changed in and any dependence thereof.
Okay.
Which is very neat. So this build directory at the top level now, so outside of backend, is configured using a Go workspace, which is my new favorite feature in a Go, which means I can do local references. So I've got some helpers here. We have a function called get database with config and get database. So this is the explicit one. that does some configuration, and this is one that just injects a little bit of an override. So here I'm just saying we default to DB15 or Postgres 15, but you can provide the full config if you want. And then we just set it up so that we can access Postgres as the user Postgres with the password Postgres. This function isn't available for me to use anywhere. Same with secrets. This is actually just going to do a local exec where it uses the 1Password CLI to grab a secret and then spits it back as a secret value. And then we have our different entry points. In this case, test is orchestrated with main.go, which uses Go workspaces to pull in the backend builder. Set up the Dagger client. So now we do know that Dagger's a thing. We use our Go workspace dev tool project to grab the secret. We get our database. And then we just call a few more things. So I'm saying, here's the build container image that we've seen. Only this time I'm going to change a few things. I'm going to pass in the environment variable for the database. I'm going to pass in the secret token, some port information. We can do service bindings so that the different containers can speak to each other if you want. So in a way, you could actually use Dagger just to replace Docker Compose completely, which is very cool as well. Now, there's a small hurl test suite here. So once we've built the image, we actually just run it. Or at least we use a service binding in this case. And then we run another container that has hurl available, which is like a HTTP testing framework that uses a really simple syntax. And then we run the test against it. And then we can inspect the output of that and say, hey, this passed or this failed, and then show you why it failed. The hurl file looks like this. Oh, sorry. The hurl file looks like this. We want to hit the ping endpoint, and then we hit the ask endpoint, which will actually go and speak to ChatGPT. So there's a lot of code. I'm went over that really, really quickly. I'm going to show you it running, and if you have any questions, I'll take them. So there's two ways to do this. One is, as a Go developer, you could just do Go run, where we do build, test, main. We give that a few seconds. 1Password prompt. That was an error. Of course that was going to happen, right? Make sure I'm on the right account. That's better.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, and my test passed. Of course, never trust a passing test. So let's say we change this to Brian. We run it again. Now let's say failed. It'll tell us why it failed. We'll get that output from hurl. And then there's one last thing I'll show you, and we'll wrap this up. But all right, now it's saying we got back hello in German. It's hello at Guten Tag, and we expected to find Brian. So let's change that back. Now I have to remove an alias because this is a very experimental feature of Dagger, where they now provide an experimental UI where you can do Dagger run and then say go run, build, test, main. Now what this does is it will actually run a Dagger client for you, which executes your command, but it allows you to visualize the entire graph of containers and commands that are running within the build kit instance. So here we'll actually be able to see that most things are properly cached. Now I've ran it a few times, but we can see all the jobs spawning and the output as we progress. So you've got all these like fancy get branch symbols. We'll say, okay, here's your directory. Now we've got to pull an image. Here's Golang, and you can see all these arrows jumping about. But it really gives you a good visibility into what's happening within your build pipeline. So that's Dagger.
Nice. So where's the passing? How do you know it passed? It isn't obvious that.
Well, it's all cached.
What's it look like when it failed?
Well, it's cached right now.
So it was way at the top. I see it.
Was it? Oh yeah. Okay, right. Okay, you're right. But this has all been cached. So cached, all the way down. So I actually really didn't execute anything because nothing had changed. If we change this again, hello, blah blah blah, whatever, something just to invalidate the cache, then we'll actually see that one of the steps is no longer cached, and that'll be the hurl test suite itself. Because that's what we changed, right? We changed the hurl test file. Yeah, there we go. This one actually executed this time. And then we get our failure.
Oh, wow. All right, I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's nice that you can write some Go code, some TypeScript code, some Python code, some Rust code, some Elixir code. In theory, it can support any language. Some languages are obviously better suited than others. First and most importantly, pick one that you're comfortable with. But then after that, try and pick the one that's going to give you the best pipeline. Like being able to reuse functions across a monorepository is a really important skill, but not every language actually supports that terribly well. Like Node.js, unfortunately. But Go with Go Workspace does enable that kind of power user pipeline.
Very impressive. I could think of a few uses for Dagger.
All right. Well, hopefully people enjoyed this episode. We'll see you all next week.
Cheers.
If you want to hear why we showed off these tools, check out the podcast available at alphabits.fm. Until next week, see you soon.